She pointed at my Harley like she owned it and snapped, "Move it now, my son parks here." I laughed because it was my own driveway, but her son, this smug 20-something kid with designer sunglasses, stepped forward and said, "You don't get it? Mom runs this neighborhood. If you don't move it, the cops will." I leaned against the bike, calm while his voice rose. Neighbors peeked through curtains, whispering. Karen stood with her arms folded like a queen, watching her son bark orders. Then, without warning, he pulled out his phone, dialed 911 and shouted, "Yeah, we've got a biker trespassing and threatening us." I could feel the tension snap in the air. Sirens echoed from down the street minutes later, and Karen smirked like she'd won. But inside, I kept my silence because I knew something they didn't. My Harley wasn't just any motorcycle, and I wasn't just any homeowner. The man riding up behind those flashing lights, he wasn't just a cop. He was the state attorney, and he was here for me. The patrol car stopped right in front of my house, lights bouncing off the Harley's chrome. Karen's son puffed out his chest like he was the one who called backup. "Officer, that's him," he shouted, pointing straight at me. He threatened us, and he's parking illegally. The officer didn't even look at him first. He walked right over to me, shook my hand firmly, and said, "Evening. Heard you had some trouble here." Karen's face froze. Her son blinked, confused. Karen stomped closer, waving her hands. "Excuse me. This man is trespassing. He's not supposed to live here. My HOA rules say motorcycles aren't allowed. I want him cited and removed right now." She shoved a wrinkled HOA paper at the officer like it was the Constitution itself. The officer raised an eyebrow, slowly taking the paper, then looked at me. I just gave him a calm nod. He turned back to Karen and said flatly, "Ma'am, you don't make the law here." "I do. And this driveway? This property? It's his." Her son's jaw dropped. "What?" No, Mom, tell him. You're the president. He has to follow your rules." The officer's eyes narrowed, his tone shifting cold. "You called 911 to file a false police report. That's a crime." Karen's smirk faltered. For the first time, I saw panic flicker in her eyes. She tried to recover, laughing nervously. "Oh, officer, you don't understand. We were just trying to keep the neighborhood safe." But the officer stepped closer, lowering his voice so everyone could hear. "Safe? Lady, you just tried to criminalize the actual homeowner. And before you embarrass yourself more, maybe you should know. This isn't just my buddy. He's protected by the state attorney's office. You just picked the wrong fight." Karen's face went pale, but her son didn't back down. He scoffed and shoved his sunglasses higher up his nose. "State attorney? Please, you're bluffing. Nobody important would live in a dump like this with a noisy Harley." I could hear the neighbors gasp from across the street. They weren't hiding behind curtains anymore. They were all stepping out, recording with their phones. Karen tugged at her son's arm, whispering, "Stop talking." But he ripped free. "No, Mom, he's lying. Watch, I'll prove it." He marched up my driveway and put his hand on my Harley's handlebar like he was claiming it. "This thing? It doesn't belong here. I'm moving it." The officer barked, "Don't touch that bike." But the kid just sneered. The sound of heavy boots hit the pavement behind us. Another car pulled up. Unmarked, black, windows tinted. From it stepped a tall man in a suit, calm and collected. The neighbors went silent. Karen's son froze with his hand still on my bike. The suited man adjusted his tie, looked straight, at Karen, then at me, and said in a steady voice, "I heard we had a problem. Who thought it was a good idea to call in a false report against my client?" Karen's lips trembled. Client? You're the state attorney?" The man nodded once. "And this man," he pointed directly at me, "is under my protection. You just threatened him, tried to take his property, and lied to law enforcement. I hope you understand how serious that is." Karen's son pulled his hand back from the Harley like it was on fire. But the attorney didn't stop there. He looked around at the neighbors and raised his voice. "And for the record, this HOA has no authority to strip anyone's rights on private property. What I see here is abuse of power, and that ends tonight." Karen's son tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. "This is ridiculous. You can't just walk in here and act like you own the place. My mom runs this neighborhood, not you. The state attorney turned his gaze on him, calm but sharp enough to cut. Son, I don't think you understand. Impersonating authority, filing false reports, and attempting to seize someone's property, those are criminal offenses. And your mother? She's the one who pushed you into this mess. Karen's eyes darted from face to face as more neighbors crowded in, phones recording every second. Her perfect little empire, the whispers, the threats, the fake notices, was unraveling right in front of her. She stammered, This is all a misunderstanding. We were only following HOA policy. The attorney pulled the crumpled notice from the officer's hand and held it up. This isn't policy, it's forgery. You've been issuing fake HOA violations without legal standing. That's fraud, ma'am. He dropped the paper back at her feet. And fraud has consequences. The officer's radio crackled as backup units rolled into the street. Karen's son panicked and shouted, Mom, do something. But Karen had no words left, just a trembling jaw and a cold sweat on her forehead. I finally spoke, breaking my silence. You thought you could scare me out of my own land with fake rules. You thought you could use cops, threats, and lies. But you forgot one thing. I'm not alone in this fight. The attorney nodded and added, And now, Mrs. Karen, it's your turn to explain everything. Down at the station. The officer pulled out the cuffs, stepping toward her. The crowd gasped, and phones zoomed in. Karen stumbled back, whispering, No, you can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. The attorney's reply cut through the night. And I'm the law. The officer reached for Karen's wrists, the metal cuffs glinting under the streetlight. But that's when her son snapped. He shoved himself between them, arms spread wide. You're not touching her. You don't get it. This neighborhood belongs to us. My grandfather built half these houses. You can't just treat her like a criminal. The crowd murmured, the weight of his words hanging in the air. For a second, even I wondered if there was more to this story. Karen's eyes lit up with a desperate spark, like she'd just found her escape. Yes. Tell them, honey. Our family has power here. We're untouchable. The state attorney didn't flinch. He folded his arms and said calmly, So you're admitting it. This was never about HOA rules. It's about control. You think heritage gives you the right to break the law. Karen's son's face twisted with anger. We don't need the law. Everyone here listens to us. He turned and shouted at the neighbors, Tell them, back us up or you'll regret it. But instead of siding with him, half the neighbors raised their phones higher. Someone yelled, We're tired of you bullying everyone. Another added, You fined me for planting the wrong flowers. This ends tonight. Karen's son's confidence cracked as he realized the crowd had turned. He grabbed my Harley's handlebars again, shaking with rage. Fine. If I can't control the people, I'll take his bike. Let's see what you do without your precious toy. The attorney stepped forward, voice like steel. Touch that bike again and you'll be facing felony charges. Karen screamed, Stop it, just stop. But it was too late. Her son swung his leg over the Harley, trying to start it up. The neighbors gasped. The officer lunged forward. And then the Harley roared to life on its own. Except, I hadn't given him the key. Karen's son's face drained of color as the engine growled beneath him, the headlights flashing like eyes in the dark. He yanked at the controls, panicked, but the bike didn't move. It only roared louder, shaking under him like it was alive. The attorney leaned in close, a knowing smirk on his face. You should have asked before you touched it. That Harley's not just a bike. It's evidence. And you just tampered with it. The Harley's engine thundered like a beast, rattling through the cul-de-sac. Karen's son tugged at the handlebars, but the more he fought, the wilder it shook beneath him. His sunglasses slipped, his bravado gone. What the hell, why isn't it moving? He shouted, his voice cracking. I stepped forward, calm as ever. Because it's not just a Harley, it's wired. The neighbors gasped, phones capturing every second. Karen's son froze, gripping the seat like it was about to throw him off. Karen screamed, What do you mean, wired? The state attorney's voice cut in, sharp and cold. That motorcycle is under federal protection. Every inch of it has been recorded. Every scratch, every fingerprint. Your son just placed himself at the scene of a crime. Congratulations, kid, you just committed tampering with government property. The crowd erupted in whispers. One neighbor muttered, "No wonder he was so calm. He knew this was coming." Karen's son tried to jump off, but the officer was faster, grabbing his arm and yanking him to the ground. The kid flailed, kicking and shouting, "You can't do this. My mom's in charge. My mom—" Karen darted forward, but I stepped in her way. For the first time, she looked at me without arrogance, just raw fear. "Please, don't let them take him. He didn't mean it, we were just trying to scare you off." I held her gaze, steady. "You called fake cops on me. You forged notices. You tried to steal my home. And now your son's facing charges because you taught him he could control everyone." The attorney gestured to the officer, who clicked the cuffs onto her son's wrists. "He'll be facing the consequences, and as for you, Mrs. Karen, you'll have your day in court too." Karen shook her head violently, tears welling. "No, you don't understand. If he goes down, we all go down." The attorney tilted his head. "What do you mean, we?" Her lips trembled, and then she blurted out, "Because the whole HOA board is involved. We've been faking violations for years, and you'll never take us all down." The entire street went silent. Even the officer paused. The neighbors' phones caught every word, and then I said quietly, "Looks like you just confessed to the entire neighborhood." The silence shattered like glass. Neighbors gasped, some shouting, others whispering in disbelief. One man from across the street stepped forward, his phone still recording. "So it's true? You fined me for $500 because my grass was too long and it was all fake?" Another voice chimed in. "You made me tear down my shed, said it wasn't approved. You lied to all of us?" Karen's hands shook as she tried to hold her ground. No, it wasn't just me, it was the whole board. They told me what to do." But the attorney's eyes narrowed. "So now you're admitting to conspiracy and organized fraud." Her son, still on the ground in cuffs, shouted, "Mom, stop talking." But it was too late. The neighbors weren't afraid anymore. They were furious. Phones were pointed from every angle, people shouting about their stolen money, their ruined plans, their threats from Karen's letters. One woman raised her voice above the chaos. "I have the receipts, thousands in bogus fees." Another neighbor added, "We should all sue her and the board." Karen's face crumbled. The empire she'd ruled with fear was collapsing right in front of her. She spun toward me, desperate. You planned this, didn't you? You wanted me exposed." I just shrugged. "I didn't have to plan anything. You exposed yourself." The attorney stepped forward, speaking loud enough for the crowd. "Every word you've said tonight is on record. And now with all these witnesses and video evidence, the board won't just lose their power. They'll face charges for fraud, harassment, and racketeering." Karen's knees buckled, and she sank to the curb, whispering, "No, this can't be happening." Her son snarled, thrashing against the cuffs. "We'll fight this. You can't destroy us. We own this neighborhood." The attorney crouched down so only he could hear, his voice calm but lethal. "No, son. Tonight proved one thing. You never owned it. You only stole it. And now, you're finished." The officer began reading rights aloud as the crowd roared with cheers and anger, shouting things like "finally" and "justice." For the first time in years, the neighborhood didn't look afraid. It looked free. Karen sat frozen on the curb, her hands clutching at nothing, her son cursing in the back of the squad car as the door slammed shut. The cheers of the neighbors grew louder, some people even hugging each other in relief. Years of fear were breaking apart in seconds. The attorney turned to me and said quietly, "It's over. They'll face real justice now. But I'll be honest, this case won't stop with her. The board, the fake fines, the money trail, it's going to reach higher than anyone here expected." I nodded, my eyes scanning the neighbors. Families that had been silent for years now stood tall, holding their phones like weapons of truth. For the first time, the street didn't feel like Karen's kingdom. It felt like ours again. Karen finally found her voice, but it was broken, small. Why would you do this? I gave this neighborhood order. Rules. I stepped closer, my voice low but firm. No, you gave them fear. You forgot what this country stands for. People fight for freedom, not to be ruled by a fake queen with fake laws. You judged the wrong man. The attorney placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You don't need to say more. Tonight speaks for itself. As Karen was lifted to her feet in cuffs, the crowd erupted in one final chant. Justice, justice, justice. Her son kicked the car door uselessly, screaming, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of neighbors reclaiming their street. I swung my leg over the Harley, the engine purring steady now, calm after the storm. I looked back once at the flashing lights reflecting in Karen's wet eyes and said the words that went viral across the internet. I didn't fight for this land to be told I can't park in my own driveway. The crowd roared, phones caught it all, and for the first time, Karen's reign was truly over. The neighborhood was free,